What's going on, everybody? First off, just want to start off by saying thanks for taking the time to check out this video. I wanted to take a minute to share my initial impressions of my new Portage Main outdoor wood boiler. Just picked this up last week. As you can tell, still sitting on the trailer, it's not installed yet. This will probably be a 3 or 4 part series. I wanted to do a video about my initial impressions, show you all the property and what I'm heating with this stove. Then I'll do another video of the install process, setting it on the pad, plumbing up all the pumps and the water lines, getting the stove ready. And then later this year, I'll do another video on the initial startup of the stove, and then probably shortly after that do a follow-up video on how the stove performed throughout the winter and give you an update. But ultimately, just wanted to take a few minutes today to go over my initial impressions on it after finally getting to see it in person and let you know my thoughts. Alright, so before we dive into the Portage Main, I want to take a minute to give you a brief rundown on my history with stoves and kind of how we ended up here. So my dad always had a hardy outdoor stove growing up, so it was ingrained in me from a very young age that when it's wintertime, we cut wood. That's all I've ever known. So I've been around them my whole life, and in 2018, me and my wife decided to build our first home. So it was just kind of a natural assumption of mine that I needed to pursue that same efficiency that my dad always pursued in outdoor wood heat. So ultimately, with my background growing up, I settled on a 94 model, I believe, Hardy H4 stove, and purchased that in 2018. When we built the house, I bought it refurbished off of a gentleman local to me, and never really had any issues out of the stove. I mean, you know, maybe a pump seizing up here and there, or a blower relay, something like that, but no major issues. But the efficiency was never really on par with what I thought it should be. So fast forward to current time, 2024, we pretty much decided it was time for an upgrade. So started doing some research and trying to really learn the ins and the outs, the pros and the cons, and the things that will make or break one of these boilers being efficient. And if you start doing your research, you'll quickly learn the pros and the cons of all the stoves on the industry. I mean, there's stoves out there that have Wi-Fi capabilities that will send you an alert to your phone when the stove needs loaded, which is a cool feature, but that's not really a great feature to have when your stove's not efficient and your phone's blowing up every 4 to 6 hours because your stove needs loaded again. So efficiency was definitely top of the priority list for me, and then just ease of maintenance and reliability. And what I mean by reliability is the less things that can go wrong, the better off you are in the long run. So after probably 2 to 3 months worth of research, comparing all the different models on the market, obviously I landed on the Portage Main. This is an Ultimizer. This is a BL28x40 model. They rate this model for roughly 6,000 square feet heating capacity. It's a 90-gallon water tank, and I think it's going to suit my needs very well. So let's take a minute, open up the stove, see what you get with it when you order it, and then we'll dive into some of the specs, and I'll show you the property and what I'm going to be heating with it. Portage Main Ultimizer BL28x40. Let's get it opened up and see what the stove comes with and what you can expect. So we'll start at the bottom, down here at the ash clean out door. This really nice steel galvanized ash pan to collect your ashes. I want to point out the attention to detail on their door gaskets. You can definitely tell that that's a quality gasket. Overall, initial impressions of just looking at the stove, I'm blown away by the quality, just the fit and finish of all the parts. even the small things like having keyed locks on the front cover door as well as the door on the rear as well. So getting into the main fire chamber here. You're going to get an owner's manual with a set of keys, and again those keys are for the entry door here as well as the door on the rear. You're going to get a bottle of boiler treatment, and the reason that they use this is because this is just a mild steel water jacket. That being said, it's subject to corrosion, so making sure that you maintain your water with a boiler treatment will ensure the longevity of the stove, and it's also required to maintain the warranty. Your exhaust stack will come removed from the stove, packaged very nicely in a box inside. It's insulated, appears to be maybe even triple wall pipe. So a very nice exhaust stack. And then up top in your quad pass heat exchanger, you'll find your clean out tool. And what this is used for is to pull any creosote that may start to build up in here over time. You would use this tool to clean it out. So what they recommend is pulling the creosote and debris up the air chamber to the front, and then pushing it back this side of the air chamber to the clean out compartment in the back, which we'll look at here in just a minute. Alright, so let's get you a close-up view of what this thing's all about. So inside the fire chamber, you'll see the 2.5-inch refractory brick, and this is a key part in what makes this stove so efficient, is that brick being able to maintain the heat within the firebox. So everything from here up is your water jacket. This fin at the back, this 500,000 you're seeing here, that's also water cooled. That's part of your jacket. And then up here in the quad pass heat exchanger, this fin that divides the two sections is also water cooled. So the science behind this is that as your fire builds heat, that heat obviously will rise to the top of the firebox and begin heating your whole water jacket. And the design of this fin is in place so that all this heat gets trapped and has to cool to a certain extent to be able to exit into the heat exchanger. That hot air come up this side, heating this water jacket around, and then pass through the back before it can exit out the stack. This model is equipped with these shaker grates in the bottom. So you've got this handle here on the front that actuates your grates, just like so. Again, you've got a nice galvanized ash pan at the bottom to remove your ashes. You'll see on the top up here, that's your water level float, so you know if the tank level starts to get low. So good visual representation there. Again, no electronic sensors or anything to fail. If that float is down, you just know you need water. So coming around to the back, this is just the cap that they put in place of the stack for shipping purposes. Your stack will attach here. This is your clean out, like we talked about earlier. You would push all that creosote and debris to the back and be able to clean it out as you need. Your rear access panel for your pump, blower, and your aquastat is a really nice feature, and again just shows their attention to detail. Is that, and down here in the bottom of this access panel, they actually have it stamped so that you can knock out the appropriate size opening for your pipes to come up into the stove. This is just an extra step that they take to ensure that, you know, mice and other rodents can't gain access to this area and try to build nests and things like that. So you've got two supplies. You can run two pumps on this model. You got a supply here for a pump, supply here for another pump, and then both pumps will return to these two top ports here. And again, this rear access door also key lockable. And in regards to sizing, let's go over some of the specs here. I got the spec sheet straight from Portage Main here in front of me. So again, this is the Ultimizer 2840 model, and it's rated for about 6,000 square feet of heating capacity. It's a 90-gallon tank. They have a model below this, 2534. It's rated for about 4,000 square feet, and it's a 60-gallon capacity. One size up from this would be the BL3444. It's rated for about 8,000 to 9,000 square feet. And then they've got a BL4044. And I believe this is for commercial use only, so you would have to have some type of business entity established in order to purchase that stove. But it's a whopping 160-gallon capacity, and it's rated for about 12,000 square feet of heating. So that gives you some numbers, a comparison on the sizes that they offer. They've got something for everyone. So if you're in the market, whether you're buying your first stove or you're looking to upgrade your current stove, I really think that Portage and Main has this down to a science, and I think they've figured out how to make a stove as efficient as it can be, and a good looking stove at that. So now that we've gone over my initial impressions of the stove, let's take some time for me to show you the property, show you what I'm heating, so that you have something to compare to if you're investing in your first stove or even looking to upgrade like I was. So now let's talk a little bit about the property and just exactly how much space I'll be heating with this stove. So this entire home is 40 by 88 feet. It's a pole barn style house, but it is all stick framed 2x6 walls and blown in cellulose in all of the walls for insulation. So starting with the shop area down here, I just heat this with a water to air heat exchanger. This is 18 feet wide, 40 feet deep, 16-foot ceilings. And I heat this entire area on a thermostat, as you can see here, with this little, I think it's a 12 or 14 inch water to air heat exchanger. So it just has a fan on the back. The hot water circulates through just like a radiator, and that fan just blows out air through it. Pretty quiet. I'll fire it up here so you can hear the fan run. So not very noisy at all. And I keep this shop anywhere between 68 and 70 degrees all winter long, just with that heat exchanger alone, and it does a great job. So again, 18 foot wide, 40 foot deep. So the two-car garage, we don't physically heat this portion. It's just so well insulated that when we park our cars here and pull them in, the heat that dissipates from the car after it's been driven is enough to keep this garage heated plenty warm throughout the winter. Again, 16-foot ceilings. So the living quarters portion from here on is a 40 by 40 square. And then being that this garage is not the full 40-foot deep of the house, this is only 23-foot deep, so the remaining portion from here to the back of the home is also living quarters. And then there's a bonus room above it. So all in all, with the 40 by 40 area and then this area of living quarters, it's about 3,000 square feet of total living space that we're heating with this stove. Plus the 18 by 40 shop. In addition to that, put in this retaining wall here a couple summers ago, and I plan on adding a lean-to on the side of this shop. So a wall will get built on top of this concrete retaining wall, and then we'll have a shed roof that comes down, probably make it 10 or 12 foot ceilings or something over here, just to give me some more work area. And I plan on heating that again with another heat exchanger, just like what I've got in the shop there. So I think I sized the stove accordingly to not only what I have now, but what I'm wanting to do in the future. So coming around to the back of the residence, this is my woodshed here. I've recently tore out my old concrete pad and poured a new one. I used the sizing diagram right off of Portage Main's brochure for pad dimensions. However, I did add approximately 2 feet to the front, the overall length dimension, just to give me somewhere to stack wood in front of the furnace, and just somewhere it's comfortable to stand at when I'm loading it. Starting to get a head start on the wood splitting for this winter. It's currently May, so I still have several months to prepare. I stack most of my wood in this section. I do have a fenced off section back here that's dedicated for some of the larger pieces that don't stack well as my slab wood. So me and my father have a sawmill here on the property, and we end up with a lot of slab wood from sawing projects. So I'll usually buck that slab wood up into 16 or 18 inch pieces and just kind of dump it in this area. It burns really well if you mix it in right with your seasoned firewood. So here's how I've currently got my water pipes plumbed up. These two here are for the heat exchanger that's in my shop. Just have some thermostat wires and stuff here. These two pipes are going to supply the hot water to the house, and these two are actually no longer going to be used. The reason for that is with the Hardy stove, it had a coil inside of the stove that heated your domestic water separately from the water that you're heating your furnace with. So these two pipes would heat my domestic coil, and these two pipes would heat the circulated water within the tank of the stove that would circulate for the furnace. Now obviously with the Portage Main, you don't have that internal coil, so two of these pipes will just end up being extras, which is not a bad thing to have. And then I've just got my electric coming from the house, coming into the stove to give it power. And then this wire here is something I actually just recently added. I'll end up tying it into here, and it just runs underground and feeds electricity to our gazebo there. Now, additionally, I want to give you guys as much information as I can so that you can make a fair comparison to what my heating efficiencies might be compared to where you live. So with that being said, I think it's important to note that I live in southern Indiana. So if you hear me talk about or describe a harsh winter, what I would be referring to, if I was to say that, would be nights down in the single digits and then temperature not getting out of the teens during the day. That's kind of what would be considered a harsh winter for our area. So if you hear me describe that, that gives you some reference and numbers to compare to what you see in your area. But I know the big question with outdoor wood boilers that people have when making an initial investment like this is long-term efficiency savings. So what does that look like? So from 2018 to current, running that Hardy outdoor stove, our electric bill in the wintertime has never exceeded, I would say 175 would be pretty conservative, but I could for sure say $200 for a heating bill for a month. It's never exceeded that. I've got friends, family that all have electric furnaces, no outdoor wood heat, and if we get a quote-unquote harsh winter like we do in Indiana, it's nothing for their electric bill to be $600, $700, even $800. So if your energy bills reflect those numbers, then this is a pretty safe comparison on the efficiency that you could be saving. So that's probably going to wrap up this video. Again, just wanted to share my initial impressions of the stove, give you something to compare to as far as what I'm heating with this size stove. So I plan on doing a part 2 that will be plumbing the pumps, getting the electric wired in, getting the ground rod installed, even setting the stove on the pad back there. And then when wintertime rolls around, I will do an initial fired up video, see how that process goes, getting this thing fired up for the first time. And then towards the end of winter, or maybe even after I shut the stove down, I'll do another follow-up video letting you guys know how it performed in comparison to what I had before. So Brian and the guys up at Portage Main have been awesome to work with. My dealer was awesome to work with on this thing. Answered any questions that I've had about it, and both my dealer and the team up at Portage Main are telling me I should see anywhere from 40 to 50% increase in efficiency over what I had before. So really excited to see how this thing does, how it performs, and frankly I think it's going to pay for itself in a matter of no time. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you like the content, subscribe to the channel so that you can be notified about the future parts to this series. Look forward to sharing it with you.